Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. Okay, we have an update on the project that I'm doing in conjunction with Jessie Chorley. I've purchased her panel and I've decided that I'm going to embroider it and add different fabrics and textures to it to make it a little bit more my style. So the first video, which you would have watched by now, was me thinking about what I'm going to do with this panel and the fabrics that I'm going to use. I actually had three options, and number three won. The first option, which was just gorgeous but decided against, was the olive, and then the second option was this one here. This pack is, I believe, a TILDA pack, and it is called Sanctuary. It's just so beautiful and soft and pastel and shabby chic. It was a close second, and some days, 3 days have gone by since I made the video, and some days this was definitely number one. But I sort of pulled all the fabrics out, had a look through it, and I just felt there was more interest in number three. And I think the colours of the blue that Jessie's used in this print sort of match this a little bit better. That might be a downfall in the end because it'll be matchy and maybe my embroidery won't show up enough. So I hope I've made the right decision. I think it will be okay. So we'll go through the fabric in a moment, and I've sort of started working out what I'm going to do with my print. But firstly, I just wanted to pop up a few bits and pieces of information in case you wanted to purchase some of these pieces. So it's a TILDA, that's the brand. And the name of the fabric, the range, is Woodland, which makes sense because there's all these deer and there's a polar bear sitting under trees throughout the whole print. So TILDA Woodland. Another thing that sort of made me sway towards it, so these little flowers here, they're just the tiniest little images in the print, just there and there. They sort of reminded me of what Jessie's done. She's got this little flower here, and there's another one on the side. I just felt like this sort of worked. It's not exactly nautical, but it doesn't matter. Does not matter. Okay, so if you did decide to purchase this as a pack of fabric, I've just written down some of the measurements of how you will see it on the internet. I googled TILDA Woodland, and it's everywhere, so you shouldn't have any problems picking it up close to you. So I've purchased a layer cake, so I get 40 pieces, which I believe is the whole range, and they're 10 inch by 10 inch. A fat quarter, you get 19 pieces, so you're missing a few, and you're subjected to what the store liked when they built the pack. So you may miss some pieces that you see here on the video, so just keep that in mind. The fat eighth is the same, 19 pieces. Those two sizes, 20 inch by 22 and 10 inch by 22, they would be still perfect. They'd be more than big enough to cut out some of the bigger areas like this little house here. For example, that little house is 5 inches by 4 inches if you were to put a piece of fabric at the back and then embroider everything on the front. So that's definitely, that will work. Now you can do a strip roll, you get 40 pieces, and a charm pack 40 pieces, but just keep in mind that they are smaller. You will get all of the designs. The charm pack is 5 inch squares, so that would definitely fit here in this house, but anything bigger like the girl's skirt that's under here is, you know, a lot bigger. The strip pack, the strip rolls, they'd be fine too, but you know, they're only 2.5 inches wide, but 44 inches long. So yeah, just be a little bit mindful of those and have a look at probably the two above. But having said that, if there's some fabrics that you love in the range, there's no reason why you can't just get a little bit of each and create your own pack. You will have to buy probably 30 centimeters by the width of the roll. Some stores even say 50 centimeters. So just sort of have a bit of a think about the sizing. I will put this in the description so you can have a bit of a closer look at it and see what you can find locally to you. Now, my pack that I purchased, I got from a quilter store in Toowoomba. Actually, no, sorry, I tell a fib. I bought it in Brisbane, and that store has since closed. The girls have retired. So most of my fabrics now come from a store in Toowoomba. They are called the Quilter's Angel. They have a website, they have a Facebook page, and it's very easy to deal with the girls. It's a mother and daughter, and they're just lovely. I found them when I spotted a Facebook post showcasing a block of the month, and I decided to join in. And it's a quilted panel with embroidery, and I've sort of then put my own twist on it. I'll be doing some videos in the future of how I'm going with the process. So you could certainly reach out to these lovely ladies and they would set you up with the fabrics. Otherwise, like I said, it's everywhere. So even if you're in Brisbane, I just typed in that TILDA Woodland and all the stores just about popped up that are here in southeast Queensland, Brisbane. The rest, yeah, everywhere. So you shouldn't have a problem finding it. We'll just do a quick flip through of the actual fabrics, which will give you a bit of an idea of some that you may not want in your pack. So that's the Red Deer. I have mixed them up a little bit. So you'll find that they're not exactly in the right colour wave because I've been sort of thumbing through them. That's beautiful, that one. It's like a grey background, which you wouldn't think would work with the pack, but it does. It's just beautiful. So this print has sort of probably 4 or 5 prints, and then they've repeated them just in colours, which is really good if you're working in an area and you love a particular floral design. You can guarantee there'll be 3 or 4 other panels of fabric that will help you build your work. The tree, beautiful. I don't think I'll use the trees. I sort of am a little bit more inclined to do something as in embroider them. So I'm not sure, but there might be little areas where I just want a pop of colour. So a little bit of that tree might be used, and then you'd never know that it's come from this tree print. The woodland theme. What drew me to it is all of these beautiful florals. I will be using a lot of those, embellishing them and embroidering them. And then I love how there's this bigger floral and then a little more spotty floral, what I would say a spotty smaller print. For example, this one. Okay, so just gorgeous. And then here's the trees with the animals in an aqua. Like I said, this pack has 40 pieces, so heaps and heaps of fabric here, meters of fabric. It would be a way of working out how many meters I've actually got here. It'd be on the internet, but I just don't know those sums off the top of my head. I haven't made a quilt for many years, so I used to know all these measurements, but now I sort of just, when I see new releases of fabrics, I just get a small pack of them. This one's quite a big pack, so I really loved it, so I grabbed it. But just a small pack. When you're doing slow stitch, that's all you need is just some bits and pieces, little colours, collections. Oops, tree's upside down. Just gorgeous. Okay, and the last one. All right, so we'll put the fabric to one side. Oh, there's one more. This one here. Okay, so we're going to work with that one. So we'll just keep that here. I'll just pull this back down into shot. Okay, I've decided on a bit of a plan of attack here. I'm going to start with this flower because it sort of reminds me of a colour wheel. So what I'm going to do is work this piece first. It's, I think, going to set the rest of the project up. I'll just move that up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a process of applique, but really loose and not overthinking it, because that's the slow stitch world. If I was to applique this properly, you would probably turn the edges and slip stitch it all down and it'd be immaculate. Been there, done that. I just want to feel less stress, less perfect in doing this piece. I really want to relax with it. So I'm sort of going to take a few elements from a few traditional ways of doing things and simplify it just so that it's more enjoyable, if that makes sense. You don't want to end up with a UFO unfinished project in the cupboard, and honestly it's because it just got too laborious. You want this to be something you can pick up and it just becomes alive with just random stitches. So what I want to do is insert the TILDA fabric within the image and then embroider over the top. So what I'm going to do is we'll start with these petals here, these 5 petals. Now I've got myself a piece of tracing paper. You can use baking paper. You can use even just paper, as long as you can see your image from behind. And now with a pencil, I'm going to just trace over the bits that I want to have fabric in them, which is the center of this flower only. The rest I will embroider. So I'm just gonna come around here. Now you can see as I come around, Jessie hasn't drawn in anything here. Now we will need to, because we're cutting out the fabric. So I'm going to just bring it down and around to finish that petal. There might be a few areas through the design that we will need to do that, but that's okay. You just close it in because you will need to cut a piece of fabric for there anyway. So just sketch around. It doesn't have to be perfect, like I've already gone past the lines there, but that's okay. All right, so I've traced my flower. The next step is I'm going to fussy cut each of these pieces out, and through the magic of television, I have already cut them out. So I've got my little templates. They're slippery to pick up. So that's them there. Okay, and then I've laid them onto some fabric and started cutting them out. Now I still have one to do, and this is the piece of fabric that I'm going to use next. So last little petal to cut out, I'm just placing it on the corner. Now you can pin it. If it was a bigger piece, I probably would. I would pop a couple pins in. You can use iron-on transfer, not iron-on transfer. What's it called? Oh, I've just gone blank. It's where you iron the paper to the fabric and then you cut it out, and then you'll have like a glue on the back, and as soon as you apply heat and bond is one name, you will adhere it to your surface that you're working on. You can do that. I'm not going to in this project. Like I said, I want to keep it simple. Excuse me. And what I find with that medium is the pieces, yes, they adhere beautifully and it doesn't fray and it looks gorgeous, but after a while of pushing the needle through it, it's hard work. And if you're doing a big panel, a big piece, you sort of start to sustain some injuries in your joints of your fingers. So there is a place for it. It's just not going to work for me this time because, like I said, I just want to relax and enjoy it. The last thing I want to do is have aching fingers because I'm trying to push through fabrics that have a bit of a resiny glue on the back. Sorry, got to clear my throat. So I've cut my piece. I've got my last little template. Now I'm going to lay that on top. Have the pretty fabric facing you because that's how it's going to go here. Don't turn it over because you'll upset the design that you've traced and it just won't fit in your piece. So like I said, you can pin it, but I'm not going to. Like I said, let's keep it simple. Let's not overthink this. I know I will end up overthinking it. We all do, but these are some of the rules that I'm making for myself. Okay, so I'm just fussy cutting around. It doesn't have to be exact. If you find that it's not quite right, you can always trim it a little bit more. So there's my little petal. Okay, let's grab the rest of the petals that I did off camera and work out where they all go. I think that little guy will sit there. Okay, where's this little fella going? The blue, the pink looks like there, and there, and there. there's my flower ready to go. So what I'll do now is I'll pop a few pins in just to secure them to the fabric. Like I said, if you had have used the heat and bond, you would then apply your iron to it, and they would be adhered, but it does give you a little bit of work to push through them. You probably don't need to pin them all down anyway, because you stitch one and then come back and grab another petal. But if you're concerned that some of your elements might go missing, like, you know, they fall down the back of the couch, because that's where we like to sit and stitch, they'll be back down the couch with the rest of the pins and needles that are down behind the couch. I know my husband often says, how many needles are in that couch now? I always tell him, don't worry about them. They'll find you when they're ready to. How cheeky is that? Okay, so it's all pinned, so nice and secure. Now it's time to do the embroidery. So I'm going to leave the video there. I'm going to spend a bit of time stitching, and then I'll come back in a second and show you sort of where I'm at. So I'll just bring that up to the camera one more time so you can see all the elements are there and ready to embroider. Okay, all right, thank you very much, everyone. I might also mention that because this is going to take a little while, like it might take me, you know, 6 months, I'd recommend on this one you subscribe if you did want to see the videos when I do pop them up, because it will be quite random. I won't be doing it at a set time. I don't want to put any pressure on myself with this piece. So if you hit the subscribe button, at least then you will get notification. And I believe there's a little bell there too. I'm not big on the whole YouTube world yet. And I believe this little bell will alert you to when I post another video. So I'd highly recommend doing that, because like I said, this might be a bit sporadic, a bit random. You'll see a Jessie Chorley update on this panel. So in the descriptions, you will see where I get my fabric. I will have the measurements of the different packs that are available out there, and also a link to Jessie Chorley's shop, where you can order either this panel or there's others to pick from, and there's smaller projects. There's all sorts there. She's a very talented girl. Okay, I'll leave it at that, and stay tuned, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye. Okay, welcome back. It's been a few days since I filmed the first part of this video, and I've done some embellishing of the flower. So before we get into what I'm doing and what I'm thinking of doing with the flower, I just wanted to show you some of the materials I'm using to work with, some decisions I've had to make in the way of embroidery threads. The little pieces of fabric I've actually stitched down with a cream cotton that is very similar tone to the fabric that Jessie has printed this design on. This is a skein of vintage cotton I picked up from a Etsy store, I think somewhere in France. I'll have a look through my purchases and see if I can find where this store was, and I'll put their details at the bottom. So it's just thousands of pieces of cotton that you can use to embroider with. It's got a really nice soft feel, and I like it because it's a little bit thicker. So if you take normal cotton, for example, normal cotton, and then some of this, you can see the difference on my finger in the thickness. So you can use normal cotton, but because I want the stitching to be a feature, I decided to go the thicker cotton so that it sort of can be seen a little bit more, because my fabrics are very busy. If you can't find anything like this, you can use just crochet cotton, a little bit thicker, and it'll give you the same effect, and everywhere it's available. But just go one of the really fine ones. This is a really old one, so I'm not sure. The sticker inside says 40. Coats white 40. So something really fine is sort of what you're looking for. And crochet cotton, that's a bit out of focus. Crochet cotton would be perfect. You'll find these at op shops too. They're always leftover bits and pieces end up at the op shops with crocheting. So if you can't find a vintage cotton like this one, crochet cotton will get you out of trouble. You can use normal cotton, but I probably wouldn't because you want texture on your piece. So that's why I'm going this style. So the cotton will be used to stitch around all of the little pieces of fabric. Now the other decision I made was what was going to be my primary colour to stitch wherever Jessie has printed a blue line, basically. So I chose again a crochet cotton. This one is very thick and it will give a nice raised effect. If I put the cotton in my hand next to it off of a reel, you'll see the difference. Now it too doesn't have any labels on it, so I'm not 100% sure on the thickness, but there's plenty out there that you'll be able to find, and even you could use a tapestry wool or something like that. And I've tried to find a colour that is very similar to the print. That way if I don't stick to the lines, it won't matter because you'll see Jessie's blue behind it. If there's areas that I decide not to print, doesn't matter. Embroider, doesn't matter because it sort of all works together. For example, in this flower are some tiny little etching lines that Jessie's done. At this stage, I'm not going to embroider them, but I might come back if I want to add some little seed stitches and things. Just not sure at this stage. They're tiny. There's some more across there. But because my, what we call the Jessie colour is going to embellish the actual design, that still works. Okay, so that was the decision making with the cottons. Now I've gone through and overcast stitched the fabric down. Then I've couched with the two cottons, the blue and the white, couched the petal shapes down. In addition, once I'd put that piece of fabric in there, I created another petal through the center of each of the petals. Now that's not in the Jessie design, that's my own shape put in there. I just felt that I needed some layering to happen. So the petals were like really popping out, so I end up putting this extra shape of a petal in the center of each one just to blend it all together, just like slow stitching. The more you add layers to your pieces, the more fabrics sort of blend and become one. So that was the theory there. I also want to start bringing in crocheting elements as well. So I've put this little motif out of the center of a doily here, and then as the petals come down, the design was underneath, so I just carried on over the top and put Jessie's print back on top of that petal. So the petal is sort of sitting on top of the lace motif. Now the leaf underneath is going to have to be the same, so the stitching will come over the top of that motif. The other thing you'll notice is I have worked out a stem for our flower, so I'll just pop that back down. So what I've done is I went to my Hessian collection, and in there are twines that are made of similar product. So this is the one I chose. I really liked it because it had this scallopy finish to it. I believe I picked it up at just a $2 shop as part of those rolls for different textures and of the Hessian products, a string section. There were a few others that I auditioned. This was another one. It's like a cord. And then this one. This was nearly picked, but I just felt it blended a little bit too much. I'll just pop it there. It sort of blended a little bit too much. I sort of felt that this curvy texture was prettier. I also have a ball of the string as well, so I looked at doing that, but it was too thin. It was the wrong thickness to get the proportions of the flower, if that makes sense. So that might pop up later because there are other flowers with smaller stems, so I think that string will happen. So yeah, that was my thinking of the stem of our flower, and I just took that all the way to the bottom. Okay, so that I just stitched down with some cotton. I didn't use the vintage thread, I just used standard cotton, and I chose a Hessian-y colour, so I'll keep that now with this piece, so if I do any more Hessian work I can I'll just pop that up there to show you. Whoops, where's that camera gone? Oh gosh, making you seasick. There it is, there it is. So yeah, just a Hessian thread with the Hessian stem. So that will stay with the kit now. I've got a little bit of a scrap left. It might appear again somewhere. So that sort of is the start of building the materials that are going with this project. So before I go, I just wanted to show you the technique I used here. So I've left a couple threads here ready to go to do a little bit of stitching here, just to give you a bit of an idea of how I did it. So I'll just thread my needle. I use a fairly long needle. I just find it's easier to hang on to. So I'll just measure it. And it's got a good eye on it. I don't like to struggle seeing my thread. It's 5.5, maybe 5.7 centimeters, or 2 inches and a quarter. Yeah, 2.25 inches. It's a really good needle. I don't think it's a millinery needle because the eye is still a little bit pronounced. If that was really thin and narrow, it'd be a millinery needle, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be. There's so many brands out there and they sort of use all the same names. It's even a little bit bent from me dragging it up through fabrics, so it's actually got its good shape now for my hand. So I'm just going to pick up this fabric so you can see, and I'm going to finish just doing a little stab stitch to secure that petal down. It's very random. They're similar size, but they don't have to be. When you come up through the fabric from underneath, just go slightly away from your pretty floral fabric, because this is good quality quilting fabric. It can fray a little easily, so this is really all about securing that edge. And if I stay away from, oops, I did a blanket stitch there, we don't want that. So I'm just gonna reverse back out of that thread. Oops, now we've jiggered it. Looks like while I was chatting I did 2 blanket stitches there. We don't want that, we just want a stab stitch. I'm just going to rethread my needle. So we go down. That's better. You can use blanket stitch by all means, go for it if that's a stitch that really takes your fancy. I've just done so much blanket stitch when doing applique that I just want a really easy, free, don't think too much stitch, and it doesn't have to be even, and you know, the pressures of blanket stitch. So that's why I just love this slow stitch world that has come about, where we don't have to think too much about our stitch. Okay, that should be enough after this stitch. So I'll secure that off at the back a little bit later, because I want to come up now with my needle and thread. So I've got a new thread here, and I'm going to couch down with couch stitch. Popped a knot in already. Yep, I'm going to couch down this blue thread now. Hope you can see that. I've just come up beside the thread and I'm going down on the opposite side of the blue thread just to secure that into position. So really simple. This is a very fast way of embroidery, I think, with the couching. I will finish the outer edge of this petal and then I'll rethread and I'll show you how I did the little one on the inside of our floral. Can you see that? Yep. It's just securing that nicely. So there, down through there. So we've now reached the end of that, and I'm actually going to make my thread from there pop up in that petal, and we'll just pop the needle there to hold that out of our way, and I'll get my thicker needle. This is more of a tapestry needle because my blue thread is so big. This guy is 2.5 inches, so a little bit longer, bigger eye, and that's perfect for this big thread. So now that that's couched down, I'm just going to pop the needle in and bring the thread to the back, and that'll be knotted off. But for the sake of speed, I'm going to bring it up in the center of my petal, and because I've got enough left to create a little petal, I will use that little bit of embroidery thread, that crocheting cotton. So I've brought it up. I'm now going to take the needle off because we don't need it, pick up the needle that had the cotton on it and just start laying down the blue thread and couching it. Now if you want to, you could sketch in a line for yourself. I'm not going to. Like I said, I don't want to complicate this. I want to keep it really freehand, as if I've got a pencil in my hand, but that pencil is my needle. So I'm sketching as I go what I want to add in addition to Jessie's flower that's already here. Now I've lost my thread. Okay, let's pick that back up. So we're just going to bend that around a little bit there. Hope you can see the camera there. And just tack down that little flower insert. Just a little extra detail. And like I said, it makes the print of floral fabric behind blend a little more. I hope that makes sense. So once I finish this, I'll end the video and we'll leave it at that, because my next video will be about embellishing this flower. Now, my thoughts are buttons and beads. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with buttons and beads, but this will have my foundation ready. So I'll have a little think about the next step and then turn the camera on and bring you along to show you what I decided to do with these buttons and beads. The flower, I'm really loving it because it is like a color wheel for me. I've used one of each of the fabrics in the pack. I've now got basically a color wheel. So whatever buttons and beads I choose and use, this center flower will be a great spot. I've lost my thread again. A great spot to sort of glance at as I do the rest of my piece and sort of refer back to, like a color wheel, and what goes with what. Okay, so I've finished the little flower insert, so I'll knot that off in a moment. I'll just pick up my big needle again, thread the blue back on and bring that through to the rear, and then at the back will be all of these threads waiting for me to just knot them off. Okay, so I'll do that later. That gives you the general picture of what I did. So I'll just bring that up. So we've stab stitched the fabric on, we've couched around Jessie's design with a thread using the cream, and then as a little extra detail I've popped in the center petal on all of the petals themselves. So my next decisions in the next video will be what will we do in the center to create the center of the flower, and then I think there'll be some more embellishment on the actual petals themselves. Plus we've stitched in a stem, and we've also started to add some of these background textures that will be through the whole piece, which is a motif out of the doilies that we all get. I have started thinking about the edge of the piece, but I'll talk about that in the next video because I'm still sort of working on that. I can't quite decide the design I'm going to use, so I will come back with the next video, which will be all about embellishing the flower and securing the edge, because I'm noticing the fabric is fraying on me, so I don't want to have it just become a tatty mess. So I think the edge treatment will be done very, very quickly just to preserve that edge. Okay, thanks everyone for dropping back in and joining me on my Jessie Chorley The Garden panel. Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.